And I arrived at the other side where I met my grandfather, who I'm named for. He had died the year before I was born, so I was named for him. And he said, "You can't stay here. You got to go back. You have to fulfill your purpose and missions in life. But before you do, I have someone for you to meet." And he took me into a little room, and there were three beings there, one facing away from me, two facing me. The one facing away from me had long, wavy hair, and he turned around and smiled. And I said, "Are you the being everybody calls Jesus?"
I'm here today with Scott Robinson. Scott had two near-death experiences, one when he died in a car accident and one where he died on the operating table. And he is here to share his experiences and wisdom from the other side with us today. Thank you so much, Scott, for being my guest. I'm very honored to have you.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much.
And so you had actually a couple experiences where you crossed over, you actually died. Take me back to this first one. Let's talk about that one first, where you died in a car accident and you actually woke up in the morgue.
Yep. Even Alexander said to me, "Gee, you woke up in the morgue?" So the first NDE occurred when I was 17 years old, 3 days after high school graduation. I was given a used car. For me, it was a new car from my dad, who was in the car business. $450 1968 Mercury Montego. Beautiful little car. It was perfect for me, 302 engine. And it was, the cool thing to have as a teenager getting ready to go to college. I made an arrangement to go pick up my friend Lou, and we were going to go fishing at his fishing cabin up in Lake Opakon, New Jersey, which is actually right on the border of New York and New Jersey. I went and picked him up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We got on Route 80 heading west to pick up the route to go north to the lake. And I looked down, I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm looking through my hands. If this is death, there's nothing to be afraid of." And the next thing I know, I was being pulled down a tunnel. And when I was pulled up above the earth, an angel turned around to me and said, "Do you know what those lines are down there coming up from the earth?" And I said, "No." He said, "Those are prayers. The thick ones are people praying in unison about the same topic. The thin ones are individual prayers. Got to go now. We got to go back, and we're going to head on towards heaven." Went down this tube, saw things screaming past me at high speed, like a blur, like you're driving at 100 miles an hour looking out the window. And I arrived at the other side where I met my grandfather, who I'm named for. He had died the year before I was born, so I was named for him. And he said, "You can't stay here. You got to go back. You have to fulfill your purpose and missions in life. But before you do, I have someone for you to meet." And he took me into a little room, and there were three beings there, one facing away from me, two facing me. The one facing away from me had long, wavy hair, and he turned around and smiled. And I said, "Are you the being everybody calls Jesus?" And he said, "Because of your heritage, I will call you the little Prince of Peace, and you will call me Big Brother. If you need me, you just call out. But I have to send you back now because you haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life." And I went, "Ah, shoot." And just as I did, I ended up back in my body in the morgue in the refrigeration unit. Now, long story short, my mom and dad got a phone call just shortly after this happened. And the police officer told them that I had driven 23 miles from the point where I picked up my friend Lou to the point where the accident actually occurred. I had no recollection of it. I would find this out in the police report itself. But the policeman said, "Come identify your son's body. He's here at St. Joe's. And we just need for you to do that before we go any further. He was in a bad accident." So my mom and dad got dressed and drove to St. Joseph's Hospital. And my mom kept telling my dad, "Don't worry, I know everything's going to be okay. I can still feel him." Now, my mom was born on Halloween, and she always knew where I was and in what state I was, no matter where I was in the world. And I won't go into it in detail, but she told my dad, "He's going to be okay. You'll see." So they drove to the hospital, and he said, "Should we go into the emergency room side?" She said, "No." She told my dad, "Go to the back of the hospital," and there was the morgue door. And they opened up the door, They went down this dark hallway, and that at the refrigeration unit door, where they push people in, they saw somebody pushing a gurney. And as they got close, the person disappeared. And they saw a body on the gurney just before they opened the doors to go into the refrigeration unit. And they pulled it back, the covering over the top of me. And there I was. And I sat up, said, Mom, Dad, I met God, I met Grandpa. And Mom and Dad said, Son, you had an accident. You hit your head. And I said, okay. And they said, come with us. And I went to get off this cold metal gurney. And I went, oh, I got a bad headache. And so Mom took one arm and Dad took the other arm, and they helped me get off the gurney. And they walked me down this dark hallway. They opened up the door to the car, put me in the back, and I laid down because my head was throbbing really bad. They took me to the doctor the next day at Montefiore Hospital in New York, down the block from where my dad worked in Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. And the doctor said, I don't know what to tell you. I can't explain exactly what's happening on your EKG, your EEG, and all these other tests. You have a DMT level that's off the charts. Now, DMT stands for dimethyltryptamine. And anybody who's had a true near-death experience knows that these DMT levels are permanently elevated, whereas people who've had just out-of-body experiences or shared death experiences don't have constant or consistent elevated DMT. Mine has always been 20% higher than the average person. It's a natural hallucinogenic and painkiller that your body produces. And one thing that the Institutes of Health have shown is if you have elevated DMT levels, then there's the probability that you really did have a near-death experience. And that's how they differentiate a true near-death experience from a untrue near-death experience. So anyway, all this stuff is happening, transpiring simultaneously. Remember I said I had three beings that were in the room with me. The first one was Jesus. The second one I'd find out was Michael the Archangel. The third one, I did not know who he was for 3 decades. Didn't know who it was. I would, after the second near-death experience, have an issue where I went to a meeting and I brought back a pamphlet, and on that pamphlet was a man's face. And that face triggered a memory for my mom. And she said, oh my gosh, that's the guy that was pushing your body on the gurney. I said, Mom, he died 2 months after I was born, and that was 17 years ago. So now we go to the second near-death experience. As a result of the first near-death experience, I wanted to become some kind of doctor and healer. And I chose to become first a chiropractor, then a medical examiner. And I actually practiced in Israel and Belgium, besides the United States, Canada, and Mexico. I became a medical examiner, worked for the state of California Division of Workers' Compensation. One of my clients was the San Diego Sheriff's Department. And I used to fly my own plane to track down a client, do an exam, and then show up in court the next day with my findings, give my opinion on the case. Well, that particular time, it was winter, it was December, and I always practiced. Once a week, I was always in my plane, and I had a flight instructor with me all of the time. So when I wasn't flying for my job, I was always practicing. And it's really important. For every hour I flew, I was 2 hours practicing, and the plane was on the ground being serviced. So I went up with my flight instructor, Lisa, to Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead. That's in the San Bernardino mountain range in San Diego. Oh, excuse me, in Southern California, not in San Diego. It's up in LA. And it's above LA. You can see the mountain range there. And I was practicing on cold weather, wet conditions, icy at about 8,500 feet because I wanted to make sure I was prepared to fly to Sacramento the next day. I got in the plane. We went climbing above that. We were at 12,000 feet when I got suddenly very lightheaded. I almost blacked out and bent or slumped over the yoke of my airplane. I flew a Beechcraft Sierra C-24R, a retractable landing gear, 210 horsepower engine aircraft. They used to call it Baby Bonanza. So it was my first retractable landing gear airplane. So I always wanted to get practice in with that kind of an aircraft. She put the plane down. We dove down to about 8,000 feet. I regained consciousness. She flew me back home to Long Beach, where my airplane was sitting. It was hangared there. I got out. I was still pretty dizzy. But since I worked with the police departments, I had a little sticker in my car window, and a police officer pulled up, California Highway Patrolman, and said, "Do you need help?" And I said, "Yes, officer. I'm having a hard time driving. I can't seem to stay awake. Something's wrong." So he followed me, and then he went back on the highway. And I went to my medical examiner's office, where I was due my own medical exam, because every flight examiner, which is what I was going to, you need, if you're a pilot, you have to take your exam once a year. And I was due for one anyway. So they did my exam. They found out I was severely anemic and referred me to the Keck Institute at the USC Medical Center. That's University of Southern California Medical Center. And the building that that's in is actually in a building slightly behind General Hospital. If you've ever seen the soap opera General Hospital, that opening credit is that hospital. That was the original hospital in Los Angeles. So I went in for my test because I knew these doctors. They did exams on me and said, "We don't like what we found. This particular diagnosis was not a good one, neither was the prognosis. We suggest you go home and write your obituary or write your will, because we don't think you have long to go, but we're going to recommend this one particular therapy." And I said, "I'm not going to take your therapy, because if I do, I definitely am not going to be long on this planet. I'm going to take my chances. I'm going to go to Mexico, where I've heard about alternative therapies in Mexico at the Gerson Institute and with Hulda Clark. And if I'm going to make it, I am going to make it. If I don't, but it's a freedom of free will. It's my choice. And I know that your therapy could cause me harm. So I'm going to take that risk." Went down to Mexico, learned at the Gerson Institute. I was both the patient and doctor there. And I went to Hulda Clark. I came back 3 months later. They couldn't find anything wrong with me at the Keck Institute. And they said, "We must have made a mistake." I said, "You do realize you were talking to a former medical examiner? I used to go to court for a living." And they went, "Uh-huh." They shut up. One doctor retired. My records disappeared. The other doctor died. And the third doctor said, "You can't heal and you can't be cured from anything except doctor stuff that we do and our medicine." And I said, "You sure don't understand the biology belief, do you?" He goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "You ever read the Love, Medicine, and Miracles?" "No." "You've never heard of How You Believe Is So You'll Achieve?" "No." And so I had to leave that office and walk out, because he was the tallest doctor I've ever had, most arrogant. He was 7 foot 1 inches tall, and I couldn't reach anything more than his elbow. I could hit him in his knee, but I had to leave. I had to go sit down and do prayers, because I was like, this guy just ain't getting it. I had help and healing, and he doesn't want to give anybody credit. Now in California, doctors can only get credit if they follow the standard procedures of medical practice. God has been taken out of the equation in California. You can't get a help and a healing from God, only an MD with prescribed therapies. And you have to have lived 10 years, 2 months, 10 years, 2 days with that in order to be called cured. So they couldn't understand what happened to me. And this doctor was too arrogant. I never wanted to go back there ever again. So I decided to take what I knew, alternative medicine and spiritual healing, which had helped me, and go on the road and help other people. Now, people have always asked me, what is this one technique that God told you you had to go back, learn, and teach other people? And that was the technique of Einstellen, Einstellen. It's German for tuning into the source, whatever you call the source, God, and asking for help and healing, which gets me to the name of the book, which is called There Are No Lines in Heaven. And you can find me on the internet under Amazon, therearenolinsinheaven.com. That's my website. It's also my book name. But you had asked me before the interview began, how the heck did the book get its name? Well, two things happened. when I was working with the Gerson Institute, they asked me to go see somebody in San Diego who was one of their clients and please help them with what was going on. And I said, Mr. Brown, you've asked me to come and talk to you. Why? You told me you're a devout Christian. You only work with Christian doctors. Why did you want to hire me? Why did you want me to come and talk to you? And he said, because I heard from several sources that you had met Jesus. And I'm a devout Christian. I've never met Jesus. I said, but you do remember that Jesus was Jewish and he's in the line of David. And in my family, I am too in the line of David. My great grandfather, many times removed, is Aaron of the Bible, Moses' brother. Moses would have been my uncle, many times removed. Also in the line of David, Jesus, Yeshua ben Yosef bar Abbas, would have been my cousin, many times removed. So he really was related to me, and he still is. So, long story short, Mr. Brown then had a near-death experience, and he came back before he actually did die. And he said to me, Dr. Robinson, you were right. Everybody's welcome up in heaven. Jews, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslim, everybody's welcome there. I said, I told you, there's no prejudice in heaven, because he had told me that only Christians went to heaven. And I said, that's funny. I've crossed over twice. Nobody told me that. So after he really did die, an angel came into my room and repeated the following. There are no lines in heaven when you reach the pearly gates. Christians to the center, Jews to the left, Muslims to the right, for you are all children of God. And the angel went on to laugh how silly human beings are. And that's how the book got its name, both from what Mr. Brown had told me and from when the angels appeared after his death and finally going home for him. So many things have transpired all in this last 25 years. I mean, having been written off by medical doctors, I knew I couldn't count on them. I knew I had to only count on God, and I would be divinely guided. The importance of my lesson in this experience, over the last 25 years is learn to have patience with the C, Patience, rather than be the patient with the T, Patent. One means wait, the other means going to the doctor. So anyone out there knows that I've not only been sent back to learn a simple technique to heal myself and share that with other people, I share a lot of alternatives as well to help people heal. But I want to tell you, it's much better to be the doctor than it is the patient. But having been the patient taught me a tremendous amount about empathy. Now, you don't come from sympathy. I don't do anything or recommend anything to anybody unless I've tried it on myself first. I am the greatest guinea pig anybody's ever seen. Everything I talk about in the book, I've tested on myself. I don't talk about anything to anybody unless it worked for me. If it didn't work for me, it usually was a waste of time, waste of money, waste of energy. You can go spend the time and the money and the energy, that's okay. But I broke it down into 10 simple things that would help people. And the book was written originally for doctors to help their patients. But when the school, which originally wanted me to write this, changed deans and the new dean didn't want this book, I said, what am I going to do with it? And an angel appeared, and my God voice was heard to say, you're going to share this with a lot of other people. And I asked Father God, and I asked Jesus, what am I going to do with this? And they said, don't worry, we'll be your PR guy. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, people started contacting me about the book and about my story, like you, and said, could I have you on a YouTube video? Could I have you on a podcast? Could I ask you a few questions? You see, it's not just a feel-good story, my book. Half the book is about alternative medicine and spiritual healing techniques that actually help people heal. So I was sent back to help people. For the rest of my earthly days, as long as I'm here, I will help people with alternative medicine and spiritual healing, primarily with Einstein, but a lot of other things. I talk about the power of prayer. I talk about pushing faint matter, dark energy, negative things out of your body, removing negative energy, using balancing of numbers, verbal frequencies that can actually help, just like medicine helps. Verbal frequencies will make your brain start to produce its own brain chemistry. Now, if you remember, I talked about DMT earlier and how people with true near death experiences have elevated levels. They're usually permanent. Also, other things have happened to help make that occur. When you do Einstein on a regular basis, you'll stop needing pain meds. When you'll do pushing faint matter or pushing away negative energy from your body, you'll stop being afraid of pain. The combination of those two things will make such a profound difference that you will look at doctors differently. You will see God is the greatest physician and there is no incurable. And that is one of those things that I'm here to share with people. Humans used to remember how to do this. They have forgotten. In what was Burma, but now Myanmar, one of my teachers taught me this method. His name was Robert Harry Hover. And he learned from the monks, which was in Burma at the time when he broke his leg. He came home with a completely healed leg. And he taught me this. I was one of his last clients before he crossed over. So I talk about Robert Harry Hover and how this made a difference. He said, you have more faint matter stuck in your body than all but one person he'd ever worked with. And he'd worked with 400 clients. I was next to his last client before he crossed over. When I learned this technique, a very interesting thing happened. I had a harder time working on myself than I did helping other people. I could see dark faint matter and negative evil things attack other people and pull it out of them easier than I could do it for myself. And the first person I did this with was my mother. I saw this thing floating in the sky, and all of a sudden it came down and hit my mom in the head. And she said, ow, I got a headache. I said, Mom, I know exactly what it is. And I pulled it out of her spiritually and pulled it away, gave it to God. Her headache disappeared. Once we learn this technique and you do Einstein, you become not invincible, but you do learn not to be afraid of anything. God and the angels have told me, don't be afraid of what you occur in life. They can't stop everything bad from happening. But if something bad does happen, simply call upon God and God will put his protective hand around and over you. So I teach people this, especially with prayers. And sometimes I push negative energy around or out of people, and that's all they need to have a help and a healing. Other times I teach them all these alternative things. We were talking about how to do some of these things before you started our conversation. So, number one, we've talked about first near-death experience. Number two, the second near-death experience. And I have to add one thing. After I died on the operating table, the second near death was on the operating table that they had sent me to it from the Keck Institute. They wanted to find out the source of bleeding that was occurring. They overdosed me on fentanyl, stopped my heart. I came out of my body and floated above it and saw everything in the operating room. The doctor, the nurse, the shoes that they were wearing identical shoes. And these two were having a conversation which they should have never shared with me over my body, over my dead body. I came out of my body. I stood there floating, and it was called a veridical experience or veridical near death experience. I asked the angel that was next to me, can I go home now? And they said, nope, you still haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life. I said, what is my purpose and missions in life? And they said, you will learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people. I said, okay. And I came back into my body. The doctor was flabbergasted when I told him what was going on. I could tell him everything they talked about. The nurse was embarrassed. She left and never came back to that hospital. The doctor moved on to a different position. But just know that when you come out of your body in a veridical experience, you will see, hear, feel, and experience everything that's going on. You won't be in your body, but you will be aware of everything. And unless God says it's time to go home, don't. And this comes down to two things I tell people. Number one, don't ever hate anybody or anything. For the thing you hate, you'll come back next time in that. Number two, the other thing besides hating went right out of my head just now. It just went, "Whip." All right. So I guess God doesn't want me to talk about that at the moment, but it'll come back to me. I asked Father God to help me remember what was the other thing besides hating people. Don't commit suicide. Thank you. So I did remember. Yes, there are a few people who will have to commit suicide to fulfill their purpose and missions in life, but very few people. Because committing murder and committing suicide is basically the same thing, only you're doing it on yourself. God gives you a body as a gift, don't harm it. Now, for those that have to do this, it's usually because they're given three options: die in war, die of a terrible disease, or take their own life to save another person's life. It's usually on those occasions that suicide has already been pre-programmed into your soul. So don't hate anybody and don't commit suicide if you get the opportunity, because we live on a schooling planet. This schooling planet is the university level where all souls come to learn and to get closer to God. Well, God put on this world all the evil in the universe here. And 52 races of beings from other worlds come to visit this world, and they call it the zoo of the universe. They are here to experience the dichotomy of good versus evil. We volunteer to come here to experience, master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome. The evil on this planet, their job to destroy us. Our job, master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome. Well, that means you have to know what your mission and purpose in life is. And so, one of the other things I have to do, besides teaching people Einstein, is remind them of their mission and purpose in life. A lot of people will come to me and say, I don't know what my mission and purpose in life is. And so I'm going to teach them how to connect to God, the source, the one, the all, the everything, the big guy, it. You can't really put a name on the creator. We're all part of the children of God, and we decided to come down here. We volunteered to come here. Let's do the best job we possibly can while we're here. It's not just a feel good story about being on the other side and that there is an other side and that there is God. My job is not to predict the future. I may know when people are going to die, but I'm not there to tell them that, not unless God gives me permission. My job is to tell you, you can fight for your own existence, master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it. Don't let the dark side, the evil side, the negative side testing you try to cause harm to you. Beat it. So, whether it's the 52 races of beings that come to this world to observe or interfere, some actually come here to help, or anybody on this planet, don't ever give up unless God tells you. When the time is to come home, they'll let you know. Now, a lot of near death experience people, myself included, on the day of our birth, we're also given our exit ticket. So you have a round trip ticket on the day of your birth. But most people don't know that and they don't remember. And I do remember. I'm here to fulfill my purpose and missions in life, complete 38 past lifetimes, and help other people. I'm not here for ego and greed, although I have to make a living, and so I do, but I am here to help people. So twice a month, I teach people how to do Einstein. That's free of charge. And every other day, I do one-on-one sessions. And a lot of those people that I do one-on-one sessions or with, are other people who are healers or people who've had near-death experience, and they want to know what to do with themselves. They don't know. Or somebody who's chronically and seriously ill, 1/3 of those people will have miraculous healings when they work with me. 1/3 of those people will live 4 times longer than they've been told their prognosis. They're given 6 months to live. Instead, they live 2 years or 4 years. And then the third, that 1/3 that's left, they have about 12 weeks when I start to work with them. and they may be going home. And I'm here to help ease that situation and get them prepared to cross over. So I have a multitude of things that I must do. And reading the book, go to chapter 5, and it'll talk about all the alternatives. Somebody said, "Hey, you're too expensive. I can't go to you." I said, "Then just read the book. It's $9.99 on Amazon, right? You want to buy the big book? It's currently 53.35. It's a really big book. When they say don't throw the book at you, it'll hurt you. It's 3 pounds, 2 inches, 2.5 inches thick. It's a big book. It's made with large print for anybody over 40 who wants to be able to read that book without wearing glasses. That was what it was designed. And later this summer, in the beginning of autumn, I will have the third edition out. I keep thinking it'll come out by the end of summer. But we'll see. That's up to my editor. And so, how did I end up in Florida when I started in California? Well, my editor was the same editor as the man named Lloyd Meir, who taught me balancing by the numbers. And after he died, she got the rights to the book and she was there. And I said, I need an editor. So I called her. Her name is Christine Donnie, and she's here in Orlando. And so she invited me to come out and to teach a lot of her client members what to do and what it's life all about. What's the near death experience about? How about all these alternative things? And how do you clear emotions from a person, which are probably the number one thing that is stopping people from healing? And I did lectures, live lectures in person. She continues to be my editor, and I ended up staying. California got rid of the right to talk to patients, bringing up God. I said, it's time for me to go. And the angel that came to me in January said, yep, get your rear end out of California and head east to Florida. You have to be there in 2 weeks. So I just drove across the United States, ended up in Florida, was looking for a place. And now, since remember, I told you I have 38 lifetimes to deal with and clear up and finish. I know that I have about 48 spiritual sisters out there that I had dealing with those 38 lifetimes. And I put out an ad on Furnish Finders looking for a room temporarily till I can find a place to live or buy a house here in Florida. The first person to answer that was a spiritual sister, only I didn't know that till I arrived. And if I had not been there to answer that ad within 2 hours, someone else would have had this room. And turns out she's a spiritual sister, a fellow healer and practitioner, wonderful insight, great cook, and she's true sister, sister of the soul. So when they say that you come from the sea of soul, that's God's body, come down to earth and experience life in this body, it's basically what you put on the clothes of the day. In you're a man or a woman, you're black, you're white, Hispanic, Asian, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, makes no difference. It's just the experience you're about to have and what you need to learn to get closer to the Creator. Don't get caught up in the parade of life. Don't get caught up being in the stands watching the parade go by. Go back a little further and observe everything going on. Don't take things personal. Don't commit suicide, and don't hate anything. And if I have anything left to say, I think that kind of covers it in every way. You can go to https:// there are no lines in heaven.com. You can go there, watch my other videos, my YouTube, my television interviews at Good Morning Dallas. And if you want to get in contact with me, that my contact information is there. Um, there's a button and a link. You'll get through to my email or my phone number. It's on that website. You have that phone number and other information if you want to put that on your links. But one of the things I want people to know, there's a lot of people out there talking about near death experiences. I've been told I'm one of the few that talks about healing prayer. I'm one of the few that talks about learn to heal yourself. That means physically, emotionally, spiritually, and monetarily. I'm here to tell you there's a lot more going on behind the scenes of what this reality is. It's like looking at the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more behind that you cannot see. Get to know who you really are and why you're here. Learn to use your body as a tool that God gave you. You're not here to think as much as you are here to feel. God never asked me what I think. He always wants to know how do I feel and what that does to my body when I'm talking about that. So use your body as the tool. Now, I have divine insight. I'm going to teach people how to use that divine insight, how to ask better questions of God, and to communicate with the other side better. I could go on, but hopefully I've answered all the questions you asked of me before we began this interview. And I have to say, it's been a pleasure. And thank you very much for the opportunity to share my story, my book, and the abilities and gifts I have to help other people. And I have to say, Amen, Imunah, which means to have faith in God, trust in a being higher than ourselves to connect us to God, and believe in our own divinity as children of God.
Scott, that was beautiful, every word of it. And thank you for coming back to be of service to mankind and help others heal with this amazing healing technique that you learned on the other side. I have a question for you about healing. Why is it so important that we heal? Why can't we just stuff it all down, forget about it, move on with our lives, continue working? Why do we have to work through it and heal it?
Part of our experience to become closer to God is to let go of all the anger, rage, upset, resentment, fears, worries, doubts, sadness, hurt, grief. Give it all away. Have a clear mind and a clear heart. So when it's time to return, your heart should always be as light as a feather. The other thing is every time you carry a burden from lifetime to lifetime, it gets heavier and heavier. Jesus not only returned the keys of the kingdom of heaven back to God, he was able to take away these burdens if you gave them to him. And I will share with you some of the other beings who will also do this for you as well. You are not here to keep carrying all this evil garbage with you. Remember, this planet was given to all the evil. They keep pushing our buttons. They want to make slaves out of us, utilize us, use us up, burn us out, kill us. Your job's not to allow that to occur. So, how do you do that? Forgive, number one thing. Number two, let go of fear. Number three, get rid of overwhelm. Do you know that all three of those emotions can be cleared in 60 seconds? And you won't do that anymore. I mean, I have about 15,000 frequencies verbal that can clear in a matter of seconds. You want to learn how to get around and do things better? So hopefully that answers that question. Why do we do it the way we do it? Because we also volunteered to go through this experience and get closer to God. Because if we live in a dichotomous world of good and evil, it's teaching us what we don't want and what we do want. So when this world is done and we don't have to come back and recycle, then we're here to come back to help other people. Brings me to a point. Do you know what deja vu is?
Yes, I've experienced deja vu many times.
What it really is a pre-life review versus a post-life review. So before you come into your body, you're shown clippets, little videos of what your life is supposed to be when you choose this particular life. So if you don't know if you're on the right path within your life, when you hit a quote deja vu, it's just a reminder that you've been here before because they showed you this exact moment in time before you arrived on Earth. It's a very good thing because it makes sure that you're on your own divine individual path. And so deja vu is a good thing. It helps you bring you back to where you need to be. Whereas a post life review is that when after you die, they ask you, what have you learned? And you experience your entire life in a review. So one's pre life review, one's post life review, but they call the pre life review deja vu. Simple, makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. I never thought of it like that. That's a whole new perspective for me. Um, and this Einstein is the technique that you teach, and you said you do that twice a month, no charge. And that goes through all of the ways that we can heal
Connect to
ourselves, to
God.
connect with God, to heal ourselves.
Right. And it's funny. Plants and animals know how to do this instinctively. You ever see a dog or a cat when something's bothering them, they go lay in a ball and they just sit, leave me alone? Humans forgot. They go to medicine, they go to other things. And sometimes doing the things that they do can actually interfere with their own help and healing. Once you start to do this, you'll feel a lot better. But there is a time, and there will be times where you will have to go to doctors. I'm not telling you you're going to be without a doctor. When I was working with Bernie Siegel, he's still alive. He's still my mentor. He's still my friend. He was there when I graduated. He got me onto radio and TV. I got him on my TV. He taught me a very interesting thing. He's the doctor that wrote 17 books, but the first book was Love, Medicine, and Miracles. I knew his wife, Bobby, and I asked him one day why Bobby was in a wheelchair and he was taking care of her. And he told me a story how Bobby, because he had a near death experience, most people don't know that he had a near death experience too. He said Bobby was a past life love. And in that life, he was a soldier and he worked for the local lord. And the local lord didn't like her or her father and said, "You must kill them." But he said, "I'm in love with this woman." He said, "You either kill her or I'm going to kill you." So he killed her. In this life, he in that life he killed with the sword. In this life, he had to heal with the knife. So he became a surgeon originally. And his own wife, he had to take care of. She had a disability issue, and he was there to help Bobby. So he said, just know that most surgeons in this life killed somebody in a previous life, and now they're here to help someone heal. So sometimes you can't escape. If you're here to finish up, quote, karma, which there's no such thing, it's just finishing up things with love and a contract. But if you're here to finish up something, and if someone caused you harm in a past lifetime, then they have to be given the opportunity to help you heal in this lifetime. And therefore, sometimes a surgeon is necessary. Sometimes a doctor is necessary. If he harmed you in the past, now he's got to help you in the present. So doctors are necessary. It's part of who we are, helping people. I don't know exactly what I did to others. I wasn't shown those things. I just know that certain people I had to help because they showed me those 38 lifetimes where I could not finish up to help somebody in a previous lifetime. My parents were an example. They were my kids in a previous lifetime. I couldn't get back in time to help them. So in this life, I helped my parents until they both died. I helped them cross over. Everybody has a reason for being. If you enjoy life and live it to its fullest, good, bad, indifferent, ugly, you will really appreciate being a human being on this world. Trials, tribulations, everybody's got a cross to bear, but not everybody should be carrying a burden from lifetime to lifetime ever again. That's what makes people want to commit suicide and give up. They carried it to the point where they couldn't do anymore. So I'm going to teach people how to let go of it and not carry it ever again. Wouldn't that be a nice thing to learn?
Oh, it's a beautiful gift that you're providing for free, no charge.
Yep.
That's-
And that's what we do twice a month, teaching about Einstein. The other times I'm working one-on-one during the week. Most of my clients are online, although I do see some clients in person at a clinic in the I'm trying to think of the name, Altamont Springs, just north of Orlando, in that area. But I also have been invited now to come down to alternative clinics in Costa Rica. I see people at their home, on their farms, in Seattle and little islands up there in the San Juan chain. I get invited to talk to people who have alternative clinics in San Francisco, in Orange County, in San Diego. I still have clients back in San Diego who want to see me. But these days, because I've become Reverend Doctor and I am starting a church of my own, people look at me and say, "What do we call ourselves?" Well, you're God's patients and you're their God's clients, might be someone else's clients too, but you're my members. And that's how we deal with things because I come from a different perspective. licensed religious counselor, a person that teaches people how to heal themselves from a spiritual and alternative perspective. And people have to know that there are nuances in learning to deal with this reality. How come you can't just be who you are? Because sometimes you have to bridge the gap between who you are and who you know you are with God and who you have to play the game with in this reality. And this is what makes the difference and helps you enjoy this reality to the fullest.
Is that the
So,
point of life, to kind of enjoy reality to the fullest?
yeah, master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome. And don't let the evil, the darkness, and the negative get to you and cause you harm. Remember, their job's to kill you, hurt you, make you enslaved. Your job's to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it. And that's what you need to do. Now, everybody else has other missions and purposes in life, but that's the main job. Master this reality. You think you can do it? Here, you are providing a service, helping people be aware of other things that they need to know about. How did you get involved asking people on a podcast about near death experiences? And I've read and listened to and heard some of the other stories. You had some really good stories on your podcasts, and everybody's got a reason for being. You can choose to use your near death experience to help other people, or you can choose to ignore it and just let it go. Statistically, 70% of the people who've had near death experience don't want to do anything with it. They don't want to write a book. They don't want to share the story. They feel overwhelmed. They feel afraid. They feel ostracized. 30% will get involved, talk about it, write a book. But my book's not a feel good book. There's some good stories in there, but it's about how you can help yourself heal, with God being the greatest physician, and it's your job to master this reality. And I'll keep coming back to that again and again. But why am I here? Why do you think you're here? Number one, master the reality. You want to know your specific mission and purpose in life? Let's do Einstein together. Let's ask. Let's figure this out together. And with that, you can't look at life anymore the same old way. You have to start up and throw the rest in the garbage can and begin to really ask yourself, Holy Father, why am I here? What can I do about this reality? And how can I make a difference? How can I make a dent? How can we stop this evil? And how can we win the battle between good and evil? And you have to start with yourself and asking better questions. And you ask a lot of good questions. For those that are listening to this, she asked me a bunch of questions before we got started. Tia was really asking a lot of things, and she wanted to make sure, she said, I want to cover and make sure that my audience gets to get these answered. And have you had them answered to your heart's content?
I think you've done a wonderful job. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I can go on for hours, but I don't think people want me to go on. They've heard enough. I just wanted to say thank you again for the opportunity to share this. There are other people out there like me, and we like-minded individuals like to hang out together. A lot of us have some kind of healing gift or talent, and I'm telling you, the world will change one person at a time. The moment you say, I no longer accept this other stuff anymore, I'm looking for answers from God. So thank you again. God bless. Be well. And Tia, may you share this message with a lot of other people.
Thank you so much, Scott. And I'm going to link all of your contact information, your website, all those ways to get in touch with you down below for anyone who's interested in learning more or has questions for you, so that they can easily find you. Thank you again, Scott. This has been a great honor for me.
As well for me. May God bless you and watch over you.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.